It's a real story. The Forest That Swallowed Souls. One Woman's Scary Journey. The night was heavy with an oppressive silence as Sarah Mitchell drove her old sedan down the winding road leading to Forsaken Woods, a place whispered about among the townsfolk of Eldridge, a place steeped in dark legends. The headlights sliced through the mist like knives, illuminating twisted trees that loomed like sentinels, their knotted branches interlocking to create an impenetrable canopy. Overhead, Sarah was a young woman in her mid-twenties, fiercely independent and seeking a narrative for her life, a thrilling tale she had convinced herself would emerge from the depths of the woods. She had heard the stories about Forsaken Woods, tales that filled the locals with dread. They spoke of disappearances, of villagers who ventured too deep and never returned. But there was something in her, an insatiable curiosity that drew her toward the mysterious and the macabre. After her father's untimely death, Sarah inherited the family cabin nestled at the edge of the woods. She had returned to Eldridge to claim her inheritance, motivated by nostalgia and a desire to escape the city's suffocating monotony. Deep down, she believed that the woods held remnants of her father's past, and perhaps the key to understanding the darkness that had surrounded his life. The sun dipped below the horizon faster than Sarah anticipated, and shadows crept like hungry specters across the ground. She parked near the cabin, the air thick with a foreboding chill as an unsettling feeling settled over her. The stories whispered about Forsaken Woods played in her mind, mixing with her defiance. Ignoring her instincts, she grabbed a flashlight and stepped out of the car, the cool breeze biting at her skin. Inside the cabin, dust motes danced in the faint light that filtered through grimy windows. The floor creaked beneath her feet as she made her way through the clutter of old memories. Her father's failed attempts at home improvement left behind strange remnants that brought a smile of sadness to her face. Yet, something lurked in the corners of the cabin, an unseen presence that tugged at her mind, beckoning her toward its depths. That night, unable to sleep, Sarah lay wide awake on the lumpy old mattress, the oppressive silence echoing in her ears. She needed answers. Her father's journals were tucked away, buried under a pile of his belongings. She rummaged through the box filled with his memories, thrumming with an urgency to peel back the layers of his life. As she leafed through the worn pages, a chilling realization struck her. He had documented strange encounters with the entity that dwelled within Forsaken Woods. The woods had a reputation for a thirst for souls, described in the old tomes as guardians of a darkness that feasted on unwary hearts. He had written of woods that whispered in the night, of figures lurking just beyond the light, and of sacrifices that needed to be made. Her breath quickened, and she felt her pulse race as she dug deeper into the entries. Day after day her father had recorded incidents, missing locals, odd noises in the night, and the increasing feeling of being watched. She read with growing horror the final entry, penned in a frantic scrawl, warning anyone who dared to enter to never venture deeper than the tree line, for fear of awakening something ancient. Even as dread pooled in her gut, Sarah's curiosity burned hotter, igniting her rebellious spirit. She needed to see for herself what lay beyond the woods and the truths that haunted her father's life. Underestimating the shadows that dwelled there, she grabbed her flashlight, slipped on her worn hiking boots, and stepped outside into the cold embrace of the night. The landscape transformed before her as she walked toward the woods, an otherworldly aura surrounding the threshold where the forest met the open field. The air grew thicker, heavy with a suffocating ambience that clawed at her sanity. The moment she crossed the tree line, an uneasy sensation crawled up her spine. The wind whispered through the branches, sounding almost like a voice, a murmuring chorus that seemed to beckon her deeper. As she pushed further into the woods, the trees seemed to close in around her, twisting and writhing, like things alive. She raised her flashlight, cutting through the deepening darkness, but the beam flickered, the shadows swallowing the light as if the very darkness had teeth. Suddenly, she heard it, a rustling sound from the thick underbrush, a soft whimper that sent chills cascading down her spine. "Hello," she called out, her voice trembling but bravely breaking the suffocating silence. But only the woods answered, a cacophony of rustling leaves, filling her ears as panic set in. Maybe the town was right. Maybe something did dwell here, and she cursed her stubbornness for pushing forward. Then, through the underbrush, she saw it. A glimpse of movement, delicate yet grotesque. A figure darted between the shadows, nothing more than a flicker, but enough to send her heart racing. She rushed deeper into the woods, her instincts screaming to turn back, but something compelled her to follow. Her feet pounded against the forest floor, and the darkness swirled around her, embracing her in its cold clutches. Soon, she stumbled upon a clearing, illuminated by the pale, ghostly glow of the moon. In the center stood an ancient altar, stones arranged around it, covered in moss and bramble. Scraps of fabric hung from the branches like remnants of lost souls, fluttering lifelessly in the breeze. Fear gripped Sarah's heart as she felt a presence behind her, heavy and suffocating. Sarah turned slowly, her eyes widening as a figure emerged from the darkness. It was humanoid yet distorted, skin stretched tight over bones, eyes hollow and infinite, reflecting the faint light like dark abysses. The being stepped forward, its long fingers claw-like, advancing toward her with a sinister grace. Desperately, she tried to back away, but the ground seemed to shift beneath her, roots entangling her feet as if the earth itself had awakened, pulling her into its grasp. "You should not have come here," the creature croaked, its voice a guttural rasp that chilled her to the bone. "Many have paid the price for their curiosity." Sarah's heart pounded violently, adrenaline surging through her veins as she fought against the grip of the roots. The stories of the townsfolk echoed in her mind, warnings of sacrifices and disappearances, ringing true. I'm just trying to understand," she gasped, her voice trembling as she looked into the abyss of the creature's gaze, faint promises of knowledge drowned by terror. The creature's hollow eyes glimmered with a mixture of amusement and disdain. "Understanding comes at a cost," it whispered, advancing with a predatory grace. "Your father sought the truth, but was too weak to grasp it. Will you be stronger?" With a violent tug, the roots released her, and Sarah fell to the ground. Fear clawed at her throat, yet she felt an overwhelming compulsion to delve deeper into the darkness. "What do you want?" she gasped, trying to salvage her humanity as the creature loomed above her. "Sacrifice," it replied, tilting its head, studying her like an insect. "Every soul must feed the forest. Your father, he was curious, and curiosity has its consequences." Her father is fear, the journal entries, the allure of the woods. Courage and horror warred within her, and in that moment, she realized she was a part of this vicious cycle. "I refuse," she shouted defiantly, pulling herself to her feet. "I won't be another victim." The creature hissed, its patience wearing thin. "You are already ensnared, child. You cannot escape the darkness. Only by embracing it can you understand." In one desperate move, Sarah turned and ran, the forest around her writhing in response to her panic. Branches clawed at her skin, roots snaked around her ankles, trying to drag her back as the forest came alive, echoing with otherworldly laughter, an ominous choir of the damned. Fueled by adrenaline, she fought against the growing despair, pushing through the suffocating darkness, and racing toward the sliver of moonlight that beckoned her from beyond the trees. She could sense the creature closing in behind her, a predator relishing in the chase. As she burst out of the woods and into the clearing where her car stood dimly lit, her heart sank as she saw shadows coalescing around it. With trembling hands, she fumbled for her keys, the metal cold against her skin. Behind her, the laughter morphed into cries, echoes of lost souls warning her against leaving. "You cannot escape," the creature's voice taunted as it manifested at the edge of the woods, towering and monstrous, a grotesque silhouette against the silver glow of the moon. "The woods belong to you now, and you too them." Panic surged as she finally turned the key in the ignition. The engine sputtered before roaring to life, yet the shadows swarmed closer, hungry tendrils reaching toward her like dark hands. She slammed the car into reverse, heart racing, and fled down the dirt road, the forest receding behind her as she battled against the urge to look back. But the woods had its grip on her soul. As she put distance between herself and the terror, she felt the weight of darkness settle in her heart. There was no escaping. Something had awakened within her, a connection to the forsaken woods that would haunt every moment of her life. The moss-covered altar, the grotesque guardian, and her father's warnings loomed large in her mind. Weeks passed since that fateful night, but the shadows grew ever darker. Sarah returned to her life in Eldridge, yet the town felt different, the people quieter, the smiles hollow. Each night, the whispers of the woods haunted her dreams, beckoning her to return. And when she looked into mirrors, she began to see glimmers of the creature lurking behind her, eyes glowing with endless hunger. No matter how hard she tried to shake it off, inevitable darkness wrapped around her like a vice. Every corner of her room felt tainted, shadows creeping along the walls, whispering her name. Despite the cacophony of laughter in town, the laughter twisted and morphed into eerie notes, a song of despair that grew louder each day. One stormy night, she could resist no longer. As lightning lit up the sky, illuminating her haunted visage, she stepped outside, driven by the omnipotent urge to return to the woods, to confront the entity that held her captive. With every step back toward forsaken woods, the temptation to succumb to the shadows beckoned her, urging her to understand, to embrace. Standing at the tree line, she braced herself, feeling the pulse of the forest beating steadily beneath her feet. The clouds swirled overhead, thunder rumbling like the growl of ancient beasts, and for a moment, she hesitated, remembering the laughter of her childhood and her father's warnings. But the whispering winds pulled at her heart, and she took the final step into the darkness, fully surrendering to the shadows that awaited her. As Sarah delved deeper into the woods, surrendering to the darkness that now coursed through her veins, she heard the laughter of the forsaken souls, echoing in unison, welcoming her back to the sinister embrace of the entity, the malevolent keeper of forsaken woods, her new master. A chilling transformation began, her humanity slipping away as she became one with the dark forest, intertwining with the souls that had been lost before her. Her essence became part of it, the whispers, now woven into her thoughts, binding her to the very darkness she had sought to escape. As the full moon illuminated the clearing, Sarah's laughter resonated, a haunting echo harmonized with the lost souls, a new entity born of shadows and despair.